Hello and welcome everybody. It's exciting to have you all here joining us for this series of updates for the revisions to the PADI TEC REC instructor programs and the diver level programs. And this is the first in the series of those updates for the instructor level programs for the TEC 40 instructor update. This is section 1 here for the introduction and program overview. And I'm very excited to be here with you. My name is Michael Richardson, and I work at the PADI Americas office in the Instructor Development Department. And I've personally been working on this project for quite some time, and we're very excited to have this out to market for you all to enjoy. So without further ado, we'd like to get started here and show you what's in store. So for today, we have quite a full agenda to kick things off. All right, we'll first begin to discuss the TEC 40 instructor update process. So what you can expect to go through here to update your credential to the TEC 40 instructor level. We'll review that in detail for you. We'll also take a look at some of the highlights from the revision overall at the diver and instructor levels to highlight some of those points within the curriculum that you can share with your divers moving forward. We'll also look at some of the criteria on being a TEC 40 instructor, so things that you can teach, things to keep in mind, things of that nature really. We'll have a look through that section in detail as well. And then of course some key changes within the curriculum you're going to be teaching, so just some areas where you can reference that more easily so you're able to share it with your students and things that you may want to review in a little bit more detail before you get out there and start teaching this curriculum. All right, so we'll take a look at how those key changes impact the knowledge development sessions, practical applications, and of course the course dives for the courses you can teach as a TEC 40 instructor. Then we're going to have a look at some of the new TEC REC products, so the diver level products to support the courses you're going to be teaching. Of course, the products you'll be using as a TEC 40 instructor and the physical products that we have available to help support as well, which are very minimal. And then finally, we'll close things off here and take a look at some of the program supplements and resources you have available to you within the products and the wider PADI ecosystem. Before we get started, I'd also like to send a special thank you out there to all the equipment manufacturers that help support this project. You're going to see a lot of their imagery reflected within this update as well as within the products themselves. So we're very thankful to all of you and very excited to see such cutting edge equipment and shots of lifestyle and technical diving in general reflected within this product. All right, so the TEC 40 instructor update process here is a fully online process. So we're using a novel system to host these series of updates, which should make things a lot easier for you being updated. What's nice about it, since it's online, it means you can complete it in the comfort of your own home and in your own time, right? So you can do them piece by piece, section by section. We'll have the videos recorded separately. So you can stop them and start another one when you're ready. Instead of watching one very long update video, you can do it piece by piece. It contains a selection of pre-recorded videos covering topics that we feel are going to help ensure that you're familiar with both the new program materials and of course the standards changes within them. We encourage you while you're going through this update process to make notes and to have the new materials to hand for reference during this update. So we're going to have a look at what you need to complete specifically here for the TEC 40 instructor update itself. So obviously this update is available for current PADI TEC instructors, right? So within the classical TEC diver curriculum or higher. And as part of this update, you're going to be viewing all sections, of course, of this TEC 40 instructor update webinar. There are 3. And then you will also complete the respective diver level e-learning products. So the TEC Basic Diver e-learning as well as the TEC 40 Diver e-learning products. So you're familiar with the changes within that curriculum. You know how to reference those materials easily when teaching your student divers moving forward, and you can utilize those products more efficiently as teaching tools if you want to use them as lesson guides or for other purposes moving forward. You'll also review the TEC 40 instructor materials pack. So you also have a digital materials pack for the TEC 40 instructor level, which will contain the instructor guide and various other support materials and you just want to review and make sure you're familiar with how the access works within that product. When you've finished this Tech 40 instructor update by completing that e-learning we just mentioned, as well as the viewing of the 3 recorded webinars for the Tech 40 instructor update itself, you will have a status verification assessment built into this product, right? So you'll be able to complete that. It's structured kind of similarly to I suppose e-learning assessments, right? But it's not something that has a bunch of questions. It's really only just one question. You're going to ensure that you verify you've completed all those requirements, including that diver level e-learning. Once you complete that assessment, which is built into this update, it will automatically be sent into your PADI regional headquarters. So your PADI regional headquarters will then automatically verify that you have completed your update, and your status will then be updated, usually within a couple days or less, accordingly, right? So ensure that you do double check before you start teaching these courses that your status has been updated. So you will want to go in and check your professional credentials within the PADI Pro site, or give us a call just to make sure everything's lined up the way it has, right? So just very important note there. And of course, if you have any questions or issues in accessing any of these products or the support products, make sure that you get in touch with your regional training consultant or the customer relations department to help answer some of those questions that you might have. So as part of this update, you've also received quite a few materials. So we'll have a quick look at those here, and then we'll start to look at them in more detail throughout this update. These are the things that you should have received, obviously access to this update webinar series, which you're viewing now, so that's great. And then of course, various diver level e-learning products. So you've also got the Tech Basics Diver e-learning, which is a digital product, as well as the Tech 40 Diver e-learning, which is a digital product. And then your Tech 40 instructor materials pack. So this is a digital pack that includes the Tech Diver instructor manual, as well as a new product called the Tech Diver Guide to Teaching, which is specific to Tech Rec, which is fantastic, as well as various resources to help supplement your programs that you'll be teaching. You'll also get a copy of the Tech Basics and Tech 40 Instructor Wet Book, which is a single product for both those courses. And this is a physical and a digital product, and we'll talk more about that in detail as we move forward in this update. There's one to support each instructor level, right? So for the Tech Basics and Tech 40 program, and there's one for the Tech 45 and Tech 50 instructor levels as well, right? So these are things you can take into the water with you. There's also a digital version that you're able to kind of print out and do things with yourself if you'd like to do it that way. Again, if you have any issues accessing any of these products, which you should gain full access to before you move forward in this update, please ensure that you contact your RTC, your regional training consultant, to make sure your access is good to go. All right, so just moving into some of the revision highlights here. This has been a full and complete revision of the entire Tech Diver course range and its supporting product line, right? So the PADI Tech 40, Tech 45, and Tech 50 diver courses, the corresponding instructor ratings and the instructor trainer ratings have been completely revised, and the new courses follow the same basic structure as before, right? So obviously there's knowledge development sections, confined water dives, as well as practical applications and dry workshops, and of course open water dives, but there's been full revisions to all elements here. So please do be sure to review the new support materials here. So the Tech Diver Instructor Guide and the Tech Diver Guide to Teaching for more comprehensive details on those course elements, right? So just some important top-level changes here for you to consider. Obviously, one of the more exciting additions here is a new course which you're able to teach as a PADI Tech 40 instructor, which is the Tech Basics program. And this is an optional course. It's not required, for instance, to go into Tech 50. And it's a multi-use course that's focused mainly on equipment familiarity and the basics of technical diving, right? We've also added in trimix options to Tech 40, Tech 45, and the Tech 50 diver programs, right? So there are diver and instructor level options to facilitate the use of trimix on those programs. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail here shortly, but very exciting additions to the program here. And we've also made as many products as reasonably possible digital, right? So supported by a premium e-learning product, PDF resource documents, and things of that nature to make sure that ease of access to the most current materials is a high priority, right? So everything here is supported by premium e-learning products and supporting digital assets as well, which is very exciting. Some other revision highlights here are the fact that given all these revisions and the fact that these courses are largely digital now, supported by e-learning themselves, thereby helps streamline entering PADI TEC REC from other organizations, as an example, something that we've strived to, make something of a priority of during this revision. It also helps bolster student and instructor awareness of equipment-specific aspects throughout the course. So there's a lot more emphasis on use of specific equipment items or equipment configurations or moving between those things during these courses, which is very nice. Also helps credit for students moving between some courses with the same equipment configuration, right? However, that's not necessarily the case when moving from Tech 45 to Tech 50. We'll have a look at that in a little bit more detail in the later sections of this update. Also, there's been more emphasis on recommended routes to allow divers to learn how to use different equipment configurations more effectively and more efficiently throughout, right? Just to ensure that we are transitioning from one to another in a way that's going to ensure they're able to master the same skills at that level of training. All right? Just as a note, none of these revisions for the Tech Diver course range impact the PADI TEC CCR programs or the Tech Trimix programs at this time. So those programs still remain as is for the time being, and as you are aware, the PADI TEC CCR program, the Tech Diver range does not meet any prerequisites moving into that since it is a closed circuit program. However, it still will meet some of the prerequisites for certain Tech Trimix programs as before. Okay. Again, if you have any questions there, feel free to reach out to one of us and we're happy to help clarify in more detail for you. Okay, so being a Tech 40 instructor, so these changes ultimately are going to result in making your life much easier and your students' lives much easier, right? So there's overall, increased flexibility throughout in terms of not it just being offered digitally, which makes it easier when they get to you just to start working on more practical elements, right, and to remediate knowledge gaps where you might need to. But the course flexibility itself, right, so the scheduling flexibility, logistical flexibility options that you have are very nice, right? So you have the ability to adapt your training as well as you always have within PADI courses to meet the specific requirements of the environment you might be training in or equipment needs or student learning preferences as before. And of course, these are performance-based, not time-based courses as with all PADI programs, right? So you spend the time it takes to master concepts and to master dive skills before moving on, right? Still with a high degree of flexibility. And ultimately, it's designed to offer a very comprehensive, realistic training that's extremely robust. And it's been industry proven, right? So the PADI TEC REC range is something that's been around for several decades now, right? We're moving up on 30 years here with the PADI TEC Diver course range and its various allegories throughout the history of it over time, and results in a highly confident and competent diver moving out of these programs. Other elements here to help support you are the fact that PADI do have dedicated Tech Rec consultants, right? At each RHQ, there are PADI employees with expertise in various aspects of technical diver training. So we have a wide network of that to offer the consultation and coverage that you need, whatever it might be, right? And these are PADI employees, so they don't compete directly with you, so they're great to discuss training elements with, or business elements or marketing elements that you may have questions about. And we have experts in several disciplines like overhead diving, deep technical diving, side mount diving, technical side mount diving, and rebreather diving, and more, right? So any questions you have, we're here to help support those. Also, TEC-REC is still part of the larger PADI system, right? So your membership and benefits are something that still apply here, obviously. Your renewal fee is going to cover all of your certifications, right? So your technical ratings as well. And it's easy to update your status should you need to do so, right? We have lots of forums and updates and webinars and seminars to help update you should you need it, or when new information comes out to help explain that to you, or different concepts that we want to have more wider discussions about. We have lots and lots of webinars that are pre-recorded and many live events as well to help bolster your knowledge and understanding of these topics. And of course, there's access to a wide variety of online resources, so training and marketing resources, references, course support documents, forms and applications, and all that there for you in a variety of languages to help support your training needs. As a Tech 40 instructor, what can you teach? All right, so here is the scope of courses that you are able to teach as a Tech 40 instructor, right? So you can teach the Discover Tech program, the Tech Basics program, and the Tech 40 Diver level program as well. So we're going to take a look at each of these courses in a little bit more detail. And just as a note, as I mentioned before, there's also an option to be a Tech 40 Trimix diver or a Tech 40 Trimix instructor, right? So you can add on an additional rating to your Tech 40 instructor rating, where it will become a Tech 40 Trimix instructor, and you can then teach the Tech 40 Trimix diver program. So starting out with the Discover Tech program, this is a great program and often very underutilized. So this is something that is not a certification, right? It is an experience program. So it's a great way to introduce divers or people into the exciting world and benefits that TEC-REC has to offer. And it's something you can do with fairly low commitment, right? So this is something you can do in an afternoon, for instance. It's a pool-only experience, and it's specifically intended to allow participants to enjoy wearing various open circuit technical scuba equipment, right? So student divers can use any of the required equipment configurations allowed during the Tech Diver courses, so it gives you flexibility to offer different equipment configurations you may be training in, or maybe that you want to highlight if you're selling certain newer technical configurations, you want to get them to try it out. This is a great way to have them do that, right? And others as well. You can attract new divers this way. It's a great thing to have at regular intervals at your dive center. If you have a Discover Tech event, oftentimes people do that, and it's a great way to generate interest into your other technical diver programs. And in some cases, it's also a great thing to add into your pro program. So for those of you who may offer Dive Master and IDC programs, having a Discover Tech program as part of those programs is a great value add, a great acquisition tool, and great additional experience for those participants, right? Again, it can also be part of store events or industry events that you may be part of as well, right? Minimum age for participants is 15 years old. Again, it's confined water experience only. And the max depth for these programs is 10 meters or 30 feet. And keep in mind, per the PADI Instructor Manual Key Standards section, in the General Standards and Procedures section there may be additional standards that apply, limits and considerations for the 15 to 17-year-old age group that you may need to consider, right? So just keep in mind you might need to reference that instructor manual in addition to your tech instructor manual to fully facilitate these programs. There are forms and applications to help support it as well on the pro site. And these Discover Tech programs can actually credit towards the Tech Basics Diver program or the Tech 40 Diver program if the divers who are doing it, or the participants who are doing it, also complete Practical Application 1 and Dive 1, Part 1, during the experience and meet the prerequisites for the course at the time of the experience, right? So a great way to credit what they've done moving forward, if you like. You can just add a little bit more into it. And these, again, are fantastic acquisition tools, great for photo opportunities, icebreakers, those types of things. We also have the Tech Basics Diver program. This again is a new program and very exciting. Here the aim is to focus on building and refining the foundations of technical diving for the student divers. So this is a full certification course. It is an optional course though, right? So this is brand new and it's an optional 2-dive program that can act as a sort of bridge, right, for getting started into tech with fewer dives. If someone's not quite ready to jump into a Tech 40 program, it's a great option for those who are not quite ready age-wise, right? So if they're not 18 years old and can't sign up for a Tech 40 course, this could be a great option for that demographic, or maybe for someone who may need a little bit more foundational work, right? Or maybe you build it in as something part of your larger tech training anyway to really work on the foundational elements of tech diver training before moving into those programs. It could also be used as a refresher tool, which is really nice, as a course to learn new equipment configurations, for example, when diving with new teammates, and of course, as we mentioned, as a bridge into the Tech 40 diver program itself. The focus of this course is really on the foundational elements, as I said, right? So we're focusing mainly on trim practice, buoyancy, propulsion, equipment configuration, familiarity, and that's pretty much it, right? So again, this is an optional level. Divers are focusing on basic technical diving techniques and procedures, and this means it can be used as an introduction to technical diving or various equipment configurations and skills. For example, a single cylinder diver learning to use a twin set, or for a certified tech diver as a way to orient them to a new configuration before moving on to the next tech diver level. For example, I have a diver who maybe took a Tech 45 in a side mount configuration, but maybe now they want to learn to use a back mount, doubles or twin set, whatever you call it, before they continue into the Tech 50 program. It can also be used to refresh tech divers after a period of inactivity, or for pre-assessing divers into Tech Rec programs, as we mentioned before, right? So a lot of different applications here, and it's a very powerful tool with only 2 dives required, right? So the result here is that it qualifies divers to make a single gas dive to 24 meters or 80 feet, right? Again, this is no stop only. There's not any decompression at this level, right? There's also no trimix option for Tech Basics either, right? The max depth, right? So some key points here to keep in mind about that depth. The max depth for certification is based on their prior minimum qualifications, which at this level would be 30 meters or 100 feet. A diver can be qualified deeper, right, if they have a deep diver certification, etc. But that would not be part of this qualification, right, if that makes sense. The max planned depth for training is 24 meters or 80 feet, as we just mentioned. And this is based on the realities of training, right? So this allows for sufficient time, at depth, which might be needed to accomplish certain performance requirements, plus leaving a margin for accidentally exceeding planned depth, those types of things, right? Remember, it's about the foundational elements here, so you're really focusing on trim, propulsion, buoyancy, and equipment. Again, this can credit towards Tech 40 if divers complete Practical Application 1 and Dive 1, Part 1 during the program here and meet the prereqs for the course at the time as well, right? So again, a few things to keep in mind there. If you do have someone who may be on the fence, right? So you may want to structure the program so where they do meet those performance requirements, and it can carry forward into their Tech 40 diver program as well, right? So again, loads of different applications for this. It's a fantastic program, and we're very excited to offer it here for you all. All right. And of course, the Tech 40 diver program, right? So the Tech 40 diver program is an entry-level tech course, and it's using a single decompression gas, right? So this is the highest level that can be completed using a single cylinder configuration, for example. And it's also considered to be a nice bridge between the world of recreational diving and technical diving. And it's also a prerequisite for Tech 45. Right? So this course here, minimum age is 18 years old, because it does involve decompression. And divers can plan and make decompression dives with not more than 10 minutes of decompression using a single decompression gas up to 50%, or They could also do not more than 15 minutes of decompression if they're using bottom gas only, right? So some options, some flexibility there depending on preference and location, that kind of thing. Maximum depth, 40 meters, 130 feet, and of course the deco gases, as I just mentioned, are a single cylinder of deco gas up to 50% oxygen for decompression. Flexible configuration options exist at the Tech 40 diver level as well, which is really nice, right? So you can dive with a redundant gas source, either a single cylinder plus bailout cylinder, side mount or back mounted dumbbells, right? So a lot of different variation in the configurations you can offer here. Again, another reason why it's a nice bridge between that recreational and technical world. So it offers you some flexibility in equipment configuration. There's also an optional Tech 40 Trimix diver level that can be offered if you're able to offer that, with up to 2135 Trimix at this level. So Tech 40 Trimix divers can also make dives using Trimix with not less than 2135 if you're able to offer them that experience. And again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit more slides. So quite a few exciting changes to those courses there. Again, this is meant to be a high-level overview of those courses. And in the next section, we're going to go into more detail on how to teach those courses and some elements on practical applications specific to those courses, right? With that in mind, we want to continue our high-level overview on some of the key changes within this course range here, right? So a lot of the updates within the program reflect modern ways of thinking, scientific advancements, equipment advances, all sorts of different changes within the industry over time. As we know, it's been a very fluid space over the past couple of decades, and there's been some very exciting advances in those areas, and those have been reflected here where applicable in many ways. So we'll start with some of the key changes in the knowledge development portions of these courses, which are now reflective of the latest thinking on gas density considerations, gas reserves, deepest stop, we'll call it, right? Air brakes and oxygen toxicity or tolerance units and their calculation, right? So gas density considerations is a pretty hot topic at the moment. This is something, if you are a rebreather diver, you're intimately familiar with. But in a nutshell here, there's a lot more emphasis at each level, so 40, 45, and 50 as you progress up, on how gas density changes, it change with depth, as we all know, and how that can impact work of breathing and other elements of the dive itself in terms of gas planning, right? So ultimately, gas exchange could be effective there, and the ideal maximum gas density within these programs is 5.2 grams per liter, right? So this is something that we have built into the e-learning products at each level. There's also information in the guide to teaching, which we'll have a look at a little bit later as well, for you to build into these courses, right? More thinking on gas reserve calculation, right? So we do discuss additional methodologies on calculating gas reserves and calculating gas reserves in different situations, right? For different reasons. So having a look at that and just really starting to build the way you want them to start to think as a technical diver, right? For different scenarios, worst case scenarios, whatever it might be. The latest thinking on deep stops is also built in, right? Or maybe better phrased, deepest stop, right? And you'll see a lot of that reflected within the materials themselves, right? And how that has evolved over the past 10 years or so. Air brakes as well. These are introduced at Tech 45 with more detail at Tech 50. So we'll talk about those in future sections of this update. And of course, the OTU calculations, there's new methods discussed here as well, right? So some quick reminders. These are all sections here that you should maybe make note of. These are things that I would suggest as an instructor that you go and find within the Tech 40 e-learning section, and if you move into the Tech 45 and Tech 50 instructor levels within those sections as well, and make note of how they're reflected at each level and where, right? So these are things you're going to want to pull up and reference in more detail, likely on some of these practical applications and knowledge development sessions to emphasize key points and how this has changed and how it impacts diver gas planning and dive planning overall, right? This is something that you may initially feel like it's being repeated at each level. However, it's important, especially as an instructor, to remind yourself and maybe remind your candidates, obviously, that it's directly applicable to each level of training, and the context of these things will change and evolve at each new diver level, right? So for instance, gas density is a great example of that within this course range, and it's mentioned at all course levels. And because it's a new topic and it's important information, it's important that your students get this information, particularly if they're coming from an older technical diving training background where it may not have been covered before, right? Very cool. Other key changes here are with dive planning, right? So the program is reflective of current trends within the industry about dive planning overall. The focus here is really on using dive planning software to facilitate dive plans for the course. You could also, plan using dive computers if that's appropriate, but it's important that you structure dive planning appropriately, particularly at foundational levels, right? So it might be a good idea to start with manual gas planning, which is optional now, right? It's not required, and then maybe move into software-based dive planning once they have context on maybe why elements within that software exist, right? So they've done it as a manual calculation first. They have that context, and it also gives them another means to plan a dive in worst case scenario. Moving into software planning and then maybe eventually into dive computer planning, up to you. However, there are an overview of different algorithms and how they're used, right, with some tips on how to address each of those as it might suit your use case. And of course, as we just discussed, an overview of gas density information, software calculations, maximum limits and recommendations on all those things as it pertains to dive planning. Again, as I mentioned, there's an optional manual gas planning calculation section with lots of background information provided. There's these sections within the e-learning itself, section 8 for the Tech 40 e-learning that have all the optional manual gas planning there, right? Again, it is not a requirement to go through manual gas planning, but it is encouraged, obviously, just like we encourage the use of the RDP table to facilitate foundational knowledge of dive planning at a recreational level, right? So kind of a similar approach here. Knowledge development, some modern approaches obviously reflected throughout the materials in terms of equipment configurations. So they've been updated to reflect modern equipment configurations, and of course side mount has more emphasis as well throughout. There's a lot more information on immersion pulmonary edema, right? So IPO or IPE, depending on where you're located on the planet. Is added into knowledge development more as well. There's an increased emphasis on propulsion, trim, and buoyancy and the importance there and relevance to dive technique, right? And so, again, not just in the knowledge development sections, but at all levels and, moving out of knowledge development into the practical applications and eventually the confined and open water dive sessions to sort of have time to perfect those elements, right? And discuss them in more details and workshop them. And of course, there's reference sections built into the materials, optional review of key points from previous courses as well. And as I mentioned before, there's formulas and calculations. These are optional sections within the e-learning. Again, for Tech 40, this is section 8 or chapter 8, if you will, that has those formulas and calculations and even a dive theory review built in there as well, just to, have a holistic approach to dive planning. Alrighty, some additional key changes here reflecting or affecting the practical application elements, right? So, the beauty of e-learning products, as we all know, is that it allows for more time spent hands-on with the concepts we're learning there, right? This allows you to spend more time, workshopping dive planning, workshopping, certain skills in a dry workshop environment, and of course descent and ascent workshops that you can run in a more controllable space and in a non-evaluatory space to foster growth and development and thinking like a diver, a technical diver at those levels, right? So for dive planning, there's emphasis here on dive planning software and dive computer use to facilitate dive planning. Dry workshops, there's a lot more emphasis on specific propulsion techniques, right? So again, this is dry. This is something that you're able to run in a classroom, right? You can start on the floor, have them lay on their stomachs and practice propulsion techniques there, all right, or on a chair or something stable like that if you like. And it's a great way to help them fine-tune positioning and timing of those various propulsion techniques. You can also dry workshop things like gas sharing exercises, gas shutdowns. You can make those fun, right? You can make those kind of races or pop quizzes, those kinds of things in a controllable environment. And we encourage you to dry workshop as many things as possible, even if they're not a required dry workshop, as many of these things we just discussed are. You use your imagination and start to think about how you can make your life easier and your students' life easier when you get into a confined water or open water environment by practicing things dry first. Things like descents and ascents are going to go a lot more smoothly if you are able to practice them dry first. Key trainings within the training dives themselves, right, are designed to help improve confidence and competence once you get into those environments, as we just mentioned, right? So again, there's a lot more focus on dive technique itself at all levels, so focusing on different propulsion techniques, for instance, frog kicks, back kicks, helicopter turns, et cetera, and of course, neutral buoyancy and trim, both while swimming and during skills and stationary, those types of things, right? Introduction of dive flexible skills, right? So there are some things to discuss here, right? For instance, one of these is the DSMB skill to increase logistical flexibility, right? It's a dive flexible skill, as well as gas shutdowns in earlier courses to accommodate for different learning speeds. Other skills like rescues and surface skills as well have some flexibility depending on the program. So for instance, for dive flexible skills for the Tech 40 level, they can be done on any open water dive in the program. However, this does change once you get past the Tech 45 and into the Tech 50 program, which we'll talk about later, right? And some rationale behind why, right? There's been some increase in the range of depths for the course dives themselves, and that allows for gaining more practical experience, right, for what they're going to ultimately be able to do, on their own with a team or with a buddy, obviously, after the course, right, and getting more experience in those environments and with those skills at the depths or depths more within the range of what they'll be certified to. All right. And again, some other things to keep in mind here. Again, it's going to look like things are repeated. However, again, you have to think about the evolution of diver skill throughout the Tech Diver course range, so the 40, 45, and 50 program, and how the context of these skills change as you move through those programs, right? So although it does look like we repeat them, we expect dive technique is taught at a Tech 40 level or before, like in Tech Basics, right? It is refined at a Tech 45 level, and then of course at a Tech 50 level, it's comfortably demonstrated with the second deco cylinder, right? Just as an example moving forward. All right, other changes here are the addition of trimix gas options, right? So this is a very exciting addition. It allows you to mix it up, no pun intended, of course, right? And so there's some options to use trimix at the Tech 40 level here, up to a 2135 mixture for the Tech 40 trimix diver program, right? And of course, there's some things to take care of before you can offer that. But again, it does allow you to cater to using these mixtures to have a reduced narcotic and gas density impacts on the dives themselves, if that's something that you would like to offer in your region, right? Again, there's also a trimix analysis that's required for the trimix option. And of course, there's a separate application to become a Tech 40 trimix instructor should you wish to do so. All right. Again, I just want to reinforce that these are options and they require additional training before one can teach the course as an instructor or take the course as a diver, right? It's also important to consider sequencing requirements, which we cover in more detail in future sections of this update. But the Tech 40 Trimix divers must complete the additional Trimix section within the e-learning product before dive planning and gas planning sections in the Tech 40 diver product, right? Because you're going to be discussing, obviously, Trimix dive planning within those respective sections. There are other elements as well that are explained in more detail in future sections of this update, as well as in the Tech Instructor Manual itself. All right, so now we get to take a look at some of the new products, which are very exciting. Again, these are largely supported by digital products. So we're going to have a look at what is offered to your students here first. Your students all have dedicated e-learning for each course level now. So the Tech 40 Diver program has its own e-learning product. The Tech Basics Diver has its own e-learning product as well. Important to note, the Discover Tech program, again, that's an experience program. It has no materials. It has no e-learning. This is supported by the instructor, right, using their professional and diver level materials to support the learning elements within that program. And there's a lot of detailed information in future sections of this update, as well as in the Guide to Teaching and the Tech Diver Instructor Manual itself, on what you need to prepare and arrange and how you can facilitate that experience program, right? There's also a lot of diver level course reference materials that are also digital, and we're going to have a look at some of these now, right? So again, the e-learning programs are full premium e-learning products, right? You can see here, this is the Tech 40 diver level product. Very familiar look and feel if you're familiar with our e-learning products to, for example, the open water diver course, right? So we have everything sectioned out here quite easily, the introduction and each chapter, as well as a knowledge review for each chapter. The sections themselves, all right, so I conveniently have brought up the gas density chapter here, all have knowledge checks at the end, right? So these just confirm that the participant or student knows what the objectives were within this respective section, right? And again, can ask you any questions if something's not clear, and then you could utilize this product as a lesson guide to help remediate any knowledge gaps they might have, for example, right? So it's very nicely laid out, very easy to follow, all new imagery and animations supplied throughout, which is nice. And within the product itself, as I mentioned before, we have that optional section here, section 8, that covers dive theory and the formulas and calculations, which are optional for the diver level, right? And of course, that Trimix option, again, which is optional for this level, right? So things you want to explain to your students when you meet with them before the course starts. And like I mentioned, there are going to be various resources to support as well, all right? So many of these used to be plastic cards, so these have been pulled into the digital space for reference and for teaching and to make notes on, but there'll also be versions within the only physical material at the instructor level, the wet books, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. But these have all been revised. You have the Tech Dive planning sheet here. Again, these are PDF documents, so it's just going to be downloading that. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. And the emergency procedures sheet, as well as the pre-dive checklist. These are all things you probably want your students to print out, and you'll probably want to print them out for some of the practical applications and knowledge development sections to reference as well, right? So these are, so it's downloaded that, and these are all very nice reference tools for both you and your students. Okay. All right. The instructor level products here are also supported by digital products. You've got the Tech Diver Instructor Guide here, as well as a new product called the Tech Diver Guide to Teaching. We're going to take a look at both of these in a little bit more detail here. But again, we do go into these in lots of detail in the next section of this update, just as a reminder. So if we look at the Tech Diver Instructor Guide, you'll see that there is a section for each respective course. The look and feel here is very similar to what you're used to in our instructor level materials by this point. So it's, again, a full revision of the instructor manual and is very easy to navigate through. So it's a very streamlined navigational process. Everything's laid out to you here in the contents section, right? And then each course has its own guide, right? So if you wanted to navigate to a specific area, you're easily able to do that, right? And this Tech Basics section as an example, and then what I need to do to facilitate this course, right? So it's all laid out here for you in lots and lots of detail. And again, this is supported by a new product called the Guide to Teaching, which we're going to look at here in just a moment as well. You've also got the appendix, which will have the diver level exams in there and the answer sheets and keys for those as well, right? So full supported resource here for you. Again, there's a lot of administrative detail in here as well, which we go into in other sections of this update, but important to understand where things are laid out in this document. And if you have any questions, that you reach out to us with those so we can help you, help guide you where we might need to. All right, so moving back into the update. So actually, let's go check out the Guide to Teaching. If we go to the internet here, so the Guide to Teaching, this is a brand new product. All right, so we do have a Guide to Teaching for the recreational space, but not in this capacity. This is a novel product. It's a highly interactive product. Instead of having a manual that we just looked at for the instructor guide, this is something that you can navigate through, or you could even search, right? So I can type in a specific topic if I'd like to, and it will pull up, where that's referenced throughout, or I can navigate to a specific course itself, right? So, for instance, the Tech Basics Diver course, can navigate to, the overview here in terms of some suggestions on these items, or some suggestions on various practical applications. And I can view what I like to view and leave what I don't want to view out of it, right? So if I wanted to really just kind of look at some gas sharing suggestions, I can just expand or contract these accordion items to learn more about that. And it is the same for each section, right? So the training dives as well. We have some general suggestions, and then again, some specific ones on skills and other elements of this course section, right? So again, I can expand and contract each area that I like to get a little bit more information on there. So it makes referencing a lot quicker, right? If you need to get in here and just refresh what to do, it's very easy to do that, so you can get right back into teaching. Okay. So moving back into the update, we've also got, coming the knowledge development presentation outlines. So there'll be some tips on how to facilitate that, right? You could also use the diver level e-learning to, in place of lesson guides, to facilitate learning that way, or remediation that way, should you need to do that. And again, we cover that option in a little bit more detail in section 3 of this update. We've also got the wet book itself. So just to quickly show you what that looks like, the wet books are going to be a printed document. So this is on wet paper, the underwater paper, like the spiral-bound book we formerly had for the classic Tech Diver course range, except we will have one at each instructor level. So we have one here for the Tech 40 level, which includes Tech Basics. And again, this is going to be something you can bring into the water with you. There will also be a digital version of it if you would like to have a printed copy as well, or a digital copy. And again, you can see here the Tech Dive planning slate that I just showed you where it was in the diver level e-learning. There's a copy of it here in the wet notes. And so this is the revised version of that you can use as a checklist to help guide them on their dive planning course elements, right? As well as the checklist here, and the pre-dive safety check. We've also got the emergency procedures at the very back of here as well, so you can flip to the back and easily access this section, or flip to the front and access the dive planning elements more easily, right? So this just makes, again, access of those materials more fluid for you as an instructor. And the guide itself is a lot more easy to follow, just consolidated performance requirements and things of that nature to, again, make this easier for you to use and more as a compliance tool to ensure mastery of these various elements of the course. All right. Okay, so we just had a look at the wet book here. Again, there will be one for each level, and this is, again, a physical product. There's also digital versions of it. And if you have questions on physical versus digital product access, we encourage you to get in touch with your regional headquarters to see about access to those products, right? But you will gain access to them as part of this update. But if you have specific questions on additional versions of this product, please reach out to your regional headquarters for more information. All right, program supplements and resources. So the e-learning, again, has the resources built into the bottom of each e-learning course that goes for the diver level and professional level. So we just saw those here just a moment ago within the Tech 40 e-learning. You'll see the resources down here at the bottom. And then we have a lot of different paperwork and administrative documents as well. So again, forms, applications, training records, quick reviews, all those have been revised and will be available within a respective instructor level product or on the pro site as you're currently used to within the training hub, right? So you go to the training hub here under resources, right, and training, and then you select through these drop-down menus the course for tech diver courses and the language that you're going to be teaching it in, and then you can download whatever it is you might need to support your training, right? So you have all the different forms, applications, etc. in here for you, which will be very easy to access the latest versions of those products. Quick reviews as well. These will be available, again, on the pro site. You'll also have them available to you as the instructor, right, for the answer keys and sheets. These will be covered in more detail in section 3 of this update and how to utilize those for the programs. But again, these are things that have complete new versions as well, right? So you have the answer sheet, which is followed by the answer key itself there, right? So just keep that in mind when you're utilizing these, that you don't accidentally send divers the answers as well, right? But this will be something for you to facilitate. All right, I guess while we're at it, you can see some of the other forms here have been updated and revised. So the liability releases, statement of understanding have been revised, and there are EU versions of these if you'll be teaching in the European Union, right? And of course, the training records for each course, each one has its own record and referral form, which we encourage you to use both for personal records as well as for referrals if divers may need that as well. And the appendix content, as we saw just a moment ago, has the diver level exams and the answer sheets and keys there for those respective exams in the instructor guide. And then there are various marketing materials that will have updated as well. So the PADI.com course descriptions for each of the new courses have been updated significantly. As you can see, some screenshots of those here. And there's one for each new course, diver and instructor level, as well as a general landing page for the tech diving courses themselves, right? You also have a lot of new marketing resources in the PADI Marketing Hub on the pro site. So there's a new tech diver marketing toolkit, as well as logos and videos, images, those types of things that you can utilize, as well as course flow charts and pamphlets with information on the courses themselves that you can utilize or print out or make banners out of for your courses as well. And of course, the Pro blog also has a lot of tech diving articles on it as well. So there'll be sections in there you can filter to see some of the the Tech Rec related blog content on the Pro blog itself, right? So a lot of training or discussion-based articles there, and we'll upload some of the notable historical blog articles as well as publish a lot more moving forward in that space as well, right? So just as a reminder, as I'm sure you're all keenly aware, the Pro site itself, if you were to navigate to the Marketing Resource Hub, right? So Marketing Overview brings you to this section here, right? So the Marketing Toolkit section will have the Tech Rec Toolkit in here for you. And then again, you'll have some webinars as well around the Tech Rec space. This is where you'll find those, right, for updates or information on specific topics. Images, right, so you'll have logos and videos here. And in the additional resources section, there is a tech-specific zone, and you'll be able to find resources dedicated to Tech Rec here, as well as things like images, a promotional video, and those counter cards and brochures that I just mentioned here for you to download, right? So a lot of new exciting resources to help support your training options. Just very quickly, some reminders. Again, we have expanded the professional levels for Tech Rec as well, right? So obviously we've just covered the Tech 40 instructor level within this section, and we will in the other two, but just as a reminder, there are instructor levels at each level. So there's a Tech 45 instructor level as well, and the Tech 50 instructor level, which can teach Tech 45 and Tech 40 programs, as well as the Tech Basics and Discover Tech programs. And of course, we'll have trimix versions of all three of those instructor ratings. And of course, we also have this supported ultimately by an instructor trainer rating, the Tech 50 instructor rating, instructor trainer rating, which will also have a trimix variant as well, right? So just a little bit more on this here. The Tech 40 instructors, obviously, we know what those can teach. We just went through it, the Discover Tech, Tech Basics, and Tech 40 diver programs. And if you have credentialed appropriately, you can also teach the Tech 40 trimix diver if you're a Tech 40 trimix instructor. At the Tech 45 instructor level, you can conduct the same programs as the Tech 40 instructor in addition to the Tech 45 diver programs. And again, you could also teach the Tech 45 and Tech 40 trimix diver programs if you become a Tech 45 trimix instructor. And of course, for Tech 50, you can conduct everything that a Tech 45 instructor can and have 40, 45, and 50 trimix diver programs as well. The instructor trainer rating here can teach the Tech 40, 45, and 50 instructor programs as well as the Tech 50 trimix instructor trainer. You can teach all 6 instructor ratings, right? Because again, you'll have a trimix variant of those 3 instructor ratings. So Tech 40, 45, and 50 instructor, as well as Tech 40, 45, and 50 trimix instructor, right? Again, if you have a need for more information here for some clarification on this, just reach out to us, call your RTC. We're happy to discuss this with you more. But there's also some great information in the professional membership section of your Tech Diver Instructor Manual. We just took a look at that new one there. In the beginning sections of that, you'll find the professional levels where you can find out specifics on prerequisites for each of these levels should you be interested in learning more. All right, so that kind of sets the stage for what we're going to cover moving forward. Again, there are 2 more sections of this update. We covered quite a bit here today on the update process itself. Again, some of the top-level revision highlights, as well as some information on being a Tech 40 instructor itself and some of the key changes to the program content a Tech 40 instructor can facilitate. So the knowledge development elements, practical applications, and course dives, some of the high-level changes to those areas. Again, we encourage you to make note of some of those changes we just discussed and then go into those sections and then just review some of those details in greater detail, right? And you'll likely have done that already as part of this update in completing the diver level e-learning itself, but then you'll want to go into the instructor manual and see how those pair together, right? So it's important to see how those 2 products will pair together and complement one another, as well as the guide to teaching. We looked at your PADI TEC REC products at all levels there, diver level, instructor level, and the physical product, that wet book and then had a quick look at some of the program supplements and resources you can use to support your training programs for the Tech 40 instructor level. So with that, I'd like to thank you for viewing this section, the section 1 of the Tech 40 instructor update. If you have any questions, please contact your PADI regional training consultant if you have them. And remember, you do need to view the other 2 sections in this update to complete your assessment once you've viewed all 3 of the webinars for the Tech 40 instructor update. And once you do that, there's that assessment we discussed, that 1 question assessment you'll need to complete. Your update will be automatically registered within the PADI system, and you should see the new Tech 40 instructor rating reflected in your professional credentials within a couple of days. But again, it's important that you double check that before getting out there and teaching, and make sure that you have access to all the products you're going to need as well. Right? Again, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in other sections of this update, and look forward to answering any questions that you may have should you have them moving forward. Thank you very much.